Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another round of Basis Picks. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It is appreciated. Now, they're a day earlier than usual, although I should have really got it out earlier on today, so apologies for those who have been sort of waiting for the predictions. Yeah, I was just really tired last night. I did mean to sort of do it then, but shout out to Chris Andre Boxing, brilliant channel. I ended up doing a little bit of a segment with him for his channel. Time sort of ran away and I had a few things I needed to take care of today during the day, but we are here now. There's 3 very important cards on over this weekend, so yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to just get straight into it. This might be a bit of a long one, so apologies, but I'm gonna try and make it as quick as I can. Without further ado, let's get into the picks. Okay, so I'm going to start this one off with the Queensberry card taking place on Saturday, 10th of February at the Copper Box in East London, Stratford area. It's being headlined by Hamza Shiraz against Liam Williams for middleweight. I think there's a Commonwealth title and maybe like a WBA Continentals or International or something like that on the line. I'm going to go into the undercard very briefly. There are a couple fights on the undercard I just want to give quick thoughts on. Obviously, as we know, Anthony Yarde is coming back against Marko Nikolic, who's 32-3, I believe his record, with like 13 KOs. Anthony Yarde's 24-3 with, I believe it's 22 KOs. So I'm not going to go real deep into this one. I think Anthony Yarde's going to win. I'm expecting it anywhere between sort of rounds 3 and 4. I've seen a little bit of footage of Nikolic, but I've never watched any of his full fights, but he doesn't necessarily look of any great shakes. And the fact that on BoxRec this has been ticked as a 1-star bout kind of tells you that the disparity in supposed levels. So yeah, that's kind of my my thoughts on that one. Yeah, to be honest, you got Masoud Abdullah against Case Ashfaq. I believe that's going to be third from top. Let's see, Masoud Abdullah is what is it? I think he's 9-0 with 6 KOs, and Case Ashfaq is, I think, 12-2 with 3 KOs. Ultimately, I do think that Masoud Abdullah gets another stoppage victory here. Ashfaq's decent operator. I think he's southpaw as well, but I can just see him getting set up for that straight right hand down the pipe, and I can see it landing quite often, especially from maybe rounds 4 onwards. It'd be interesting to see how they all kind of you know, play together, but ultimately that's kind of my position on that fight. I think the co-main is Sam Noakes against Lewis Sylvester. Now this is a bit more of an even fight. You got Sam Noakes 12-0 with 12 KOs, and then you've got Lewis Sylvester 13-0 with, I think it's 4 KOs. So you can see who I guess is the puncher of the two and who is a bit more of the technician, the boxer as such. I think this is going to be a very spirited bout, and I definitely think it's going to come down to, ultimately there's going to be some tactical changes and analysis by, I think, both guys in those first couple of rounds. Sam Noakes, this is probably the highest quality guy he's been in with thus far. You know, maybe that's a bit harsh. He has actually had some decent opponents in the past, but in terms of someone who ultimately doesn't think that they're just coming in to be the B-side, they're coming in to take everything that Sam Noakes has. That being said, from what I have seen of Sylvester, which isn't a huge amount, you know, I have seen a lot more of Sam Noakes. I've been to several of his fights. He is pretty much all action. He manages to find those shots that put people to sleep. Again, 100% KO ratio thus far through 12 rounds. But Lewis Sylvester is, I think, is a bit more of a tricky operator. Will try and walk around the surface of the ring, will sort of try and control range as best as he can. So I can see him being defensively aware enough to, you know, especially nick some rounds in the early part, maybe get a bit tired having to move about sort of in the middle to back end of the fight, And I do see Sam Noakes getting the victory here, but I actually think this could be the first time he goes the distance. So I am going to predict Sam Noakes will take this one on points as opposed to a KO victory. But if he gets that KO, even more impressive for him. And I'm sure he will be shouting from the rooftops, I want to be in that 5v5 Matchroom versus Queensberry. Now, moving on to the main event, look, there are other people on there. Calder Tuama, I always sort of interested in what he does, but again, it's just another building fight for him. We've got Hamza Shiraz versus Liam Williams. Now, Liam Williams has been at world level. He's faced Demetrius Andrade at world level. He's also faced Chris Eubank Jr., I guess at maybe Fringe World, maybe European, in that sort of vein. Came up short on both of those, but definitely gave a hard night's work for both guys. He, you know, took both of them the distance. They never just got an easy ride. They had things their own way in the first half of the fight, but towards the back end, he started warming up to those punches. Ultimately, started going in, taking, you know, sort of taking it to them, and just making things very, very difficult for them. And I feel like with this fight, him and Hamza are on a crossroads. Liam Williams is trying to prove that he is still, you know, of a good enough level that he can compete again for a world title, or that he can keep his career running along. And Hamza Shiraz is trying to prove that he is, you know, of a spectacular British European level, and this is his fight to announce him on more of that world stage until he's able to get a fight with maybe Nathan Heaney or something along those lines. Now, the way I kind of see this one playing out, ultimately, I think the first 2 rounds are going to be the key here, because Liam Williams, for the most part, takes a while to warm up to punches. So in those first couple of rounds, you can hit him and you can hurt him before he's, you know, acclimatized to the power. And in this fight, especially the way that Hamza has been fighting as of late, using more of his height, his reach, imposing his will, and sort of dominating, you know, like shorter, smaller opponents, and being able to stay on the outside, I do think he's going to connect quite early against Liam Williams. And I think one of those shots, if that shakes him, Hamza is gonna jump on him. And at that point, I don't think Hamza is going to allow Liam to get back into the fight. So while I think maybe the first round is going to be the most competitive of it all, I think Liam is going to take something in the second, possibly the third round, that sort of scrambles the senses, and he's not going to be able to get himself back together. I think he will touch the canvas, and I do think Hamza is going to basically do what he needs to do. And I do see this fight ending inside 5 rounds by way of TKO, stoppage, or straight KO 10 count. Maybe even the towel coming in. I could be wrong. I've been wrong in sort of the methods before, but I do think Hamza Shiraz wins this fight and wins it fairly early. And I'm sure he may well then be shouting that he wants to be a part of Matchroom v Queensberry 5v5. So yeah, that's what my thoughts are for the Queensberry card. Leave yours down below. Let me know what you guys think also. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the Matchroom card, which is taking place at the Indigo 2 at the O2 Arena. Be about 2,000 people in there. I will be in attendance for that one. There's pretty much, it's a next gen card. There's a couple people on there who aren't quite next gen, but ultimately it's a card for a proving ground for the next crop of talent, more of a showcase for some of them, but definitely some competitive 50-50 fights. The fight I want to sort of start off with, I suppose, will be Shannon Chaos Ryan versus Jasmina Zapatonoshka. And I have to shout out Jamie from Matchroom for saying it on stage, so I was kind of able to pronounce it correctly. I may have still pronounced it slightly wrong, but it is quite a difficult name. But Jasmina is from Poland, I think currently living in Essex, speaks very good English, so very comfortable, very easy to understand. I did want to speak to her earlier on today, wasn't able to get her, but I think this fight is actually going to be a tougher test for Shannon Ryan than the Emma Dolan fight would have been. Emma is more of a long, rangy fighter, will sort of try and control the perimeter and control the space and the distance and use the jab a lot more. And I feel like that would play very well into Shannon Ryan's hands. She's sort of very short, explosive, able to slip underneath shots, winging those big combinations on the inside, then slip back out without taking too much damage or without taking too much shots back. Whereas Jasmina is essentially the same height as Shannon Ryan. She's also fights a very similar fight. She's maybe not as quick a foot as Shannon is, but she's a come forward, she's a combination puncher. She lets 3, 4s and 5s go at a time when she steps in. Very much a boxer puncher, very much trying to counter. She's on the front foot, but she will try and counter, slip the first shot from you, come with a 3-4 punch combination, and then sort of back out and then back in again. Very much ambushing type style, while staying close enough to the opponent where they don't get enough of a break to get a chance to reset. Shannon is a bit more of a front foot counter punch combination artist, but she will try to initiate action a lot more as well. And I think in this fight she is going to have to be the one to sort of initiate, take the chance to slip on the inside, get those shots off, and then sort of slip back out, but keep that nice distance control whereby she can get her shots off, doesn't get hit back with anything, and jumps back in the flurry. This is going to be her first 10 rounder, so 10 rounds, 2 minutes per round. She said that she was cruising the 8s, the 10s is what she wants. She really wants 3-minute rounds, and I think that could obviously play a part in her career moving forward. But I do think this is actually a tougher fight than the Dolan fight. With that being said, while I don't think Shannon Ryan is going to have this all her own way, I do think it's going to be another clear, quite conclusive victory. Possibly maybe an 8-2. I do think Jasmina will win some rounds here. I don't think Shannon's going to cakewalk this one, but there could also be potential for a stoppage here, because Jasmina is definitely not gonna, I don't think she's gonna shell up. From the footage I've seen, she's not coming to try and survive, or she's gonna feel a hard shot and then she's gonna back off. She's gonna go for it. And I think because of that, there is an opportunity for Shannon to spring, use those extremely thick legs, those quads, those glutes that she has, the hamstrings, fire off maybe a left hook that potentially puts Jasmina down, and this could end up being the first stoppage of her career. But conservatively, I'm going to predict a unanimous points decision for Shannon Ryan, and that winning that WBA international title, en route to getting another shot at the British and Commonwealth titles against Emma Dolan when she is better. Moving on from there very quickly, I want to speak about Cameron Vong and Ishmael Ellis. I think Cameron Vong, he's going to be the chief support on this particular card, and as a 3-0, like he's very good, must-watch TV. Comes out, he's got a lot of energy. He's definitely one that is being built, sort of in that Northamptonshire, the Midlands area, the upper London, Milton Keynes type range. He's another exciting talent. I think that Ishmael Ellis is gonna try and bring the heat. I think he's gonna go for it. He's gonna test Cameron a little bit more than he has been tested as of late. But I do think that because he is a guy that is willing to open up, is willing to try and go for broke at times, I do think that will play into Cameron Vong's hands, and ultimately I can see Cameron Vong getting a stoppage here. I think this is a 8-rounder. I could be wrong, it's either a 6 or 8, but I think it's an 8-rounder, so I can see Cameron Vong potentially getting a stoppage here around about sort of the 5th round, 4th or 5th, but it will be for the first 2. I can see him having quite a bit of trouble, maybe just dealing with the type of pressure that Ishmael Ellis is going to sort of bring forth. Right, moving on to there for what would be my chief support in this one, Craig Spider Richards, the return of Craig Spider Richards against Boris Crichton. It's, you know, Craig's been out of the ring for 19 months now. This is his first fight back. Boris Crichton, very tough guy, has been stopped once in his 4 losses, takes fights on short notice and goes the distance with credible opposition. He does still win. It's not just like he's purely just brought in to lose. If he can win a fight, he will win it, and he will push anyone deep. He hurt Lyndon Arthur several times in their fight. Obviously, he got dropped in the very last round of their bout, but he did hurt Lyndon Arthur. This is no quick, easy touch to come back to. But with that being said, I'm looking forward to seeing the new and improved Craig Spider Richards, and I do think he is going to get the victory here. And if I'm totally honest, I think, as this is a 10-rounder, I think within 6 rounds, I think within round 6 or 7, I do actually think Craig Richards announces himself back on the stage with a stoppage win over Boris Crichton. I think he'd just be a bit too big, a bit too experienced. I think he's going to hit a bit too hard, especially from range. So, you know, when Boris is having to close the distance, I feel like he could get caught quite a bit in those moments. So yeah, I do predict that Craig Richards will win this fight via stoppage. Moving on to the main event, Liam Dillon versus Reece Bellotti. Now, this is a battle for both the British and Commonwealth super featherweight titles. Liam Dillon, is the British champion, and Reece Bellotti is the Commonwealth champion. So it's a unification of both those belts. Reece Bellotti has almost become like the comeback kid as of late, and he, you know, at a time people thought maybe he's just gonna now be this ultimate journeyman. You know, he's gonna come in for the payday, give it a go, but, you know, get beat and become a stepping stone for the for I guess people moving up the ladder. Well, even though he might still technically be playing that stepping stone route, he's been upsetting the apple cart, and he's coming off the back of 3 very big wins, obviously, to win that Commonwealth and now getting his chance at the British super featherweight title. Liam Dillon, also a very sort of tough, gritty guy, Essex lad, I believe. I think he's from Essex or somewhere in and around that area, maybe East London. But yeah, he's a sort of another guy, honest, hard grafter. Not much power on his side, but he's, you know, a guy that will sort of stand in the ring, try to outwork his opponent, is not looking to really take a backward step and know that he has to come forward to win. He's 13-0-1, so there is a draw in the record, but otherwise he's unbeaten, whereas Reece has suffered, I think, 5 defeats. But I think ultimately this match is going to be nothing but the war of attrition. Who can implement their will and impose themselves on their opponent more throughout the fight? Now, Reece Bellotti, you can maybe say there's more wear and tear on him, but there's also a lot more in-ring experience, pro experience, than what Liam Dillon has. I also think Reece Bellotti does this full time without the need of a day job. I could be wrong in that, but I think Liam Dillon does have other commitments outside of the ring, and he's using this almost to be like a stepping stone to not have to do a 9-to-5 or a tradesman's job as well as the boxing. I think ultimately what this fight is going to come down to, again, it's going to be a war of attrition, but it's also going to be about who's able to impose their dominance and the most damage on their opponent. Now, if you look at their records, the person with the bigger punch, the person with the bigger and better knockouts, especially against a higher quality of opposition, is Reece Bellotti. And Reece knows that this is, I'm not going to say his last chance saloon in totality, but he's not going to get another opportunity again if he loses this fight at the level that he's been competing at. And I think for that reason specifically, he's going to be giving this one all he's got, and he wants that British. He wants to add that to the collection. I think the power is going to tell. I think that's going to be the difference between the two, and I am going for Reece Bellotti to win this fight via potentially a split decision or a majority decision. I mean, there's a very good chance that he could get the stoppage, but I do think that it will go the distance. I think Liam Dillon is tough, but I just think that the person with the bigger power and the bigger offense will be Reece Bellotti. So I am going with Bellotti to win via decision, split decision, majority decision, and become the new British and remaining and unified Commonwealth super featherweight champion. Okay, last but not least, we're going to go to the card that actually kicks off tonight here in the UK, which is Teofimo Lopez versus Jermaine Ortiz. From Top Rank. ESPN will be shown on Sky Sports, probably Sky Sports Arena over here. The undercard, there's a lot of the prospect fighters on there. The only one I'm particularly looking forward to is Abdullah Mason. I've always been a Abdullah Mason supporter since he came on the scene. I think he's gonna show up, show out, and show the levels yet again in his career. The George Acosta fight will be fairly interesting. I don't have a horse in the race on that one, but I do think that I don't know. Something tells me that Rene Tejas Gueron could potentially cause an upset on that one. He's got more power than Acosta, but Acosta's obviously the better boxer. I'm a bit undecided on that one. Realistically, Acosta should win, but yeah, I mean, Gueron, there's a very good chance there. But let's move on to ultimately the chief support, which is Keyshawn Davis against Jose Pedraza. This fight, I think this is the perfect fight at the perfect time for Keyshawn Davis. Obviously, he's only 9-0. Jose Pedraza is at one time, a very, very credible world champion, fighting at sort of 126 and 130, moved up to 135, is not what he used to be, but still has a lot of technical proficiencies in the ring, and he's still able to give good work to most of the opponents he's been in there with. Hasn't been stopped in a while either. He's was always there, always comes to fight, is always in the fight, and this is one where Keyshawn Davis is going to have to prove and show that not only has he got the the boxing skills, which we know from the amateurs and also from the Olympics or whatnot, but he's going to have to show that maybe he's got the grit to go the distance. Can he stay switched on for a full 10 rounds? Because ultimately, I think that's what it's going to take. If he switches off at any point in this, I do think that Pedraza can get to him, and that's not a position he wants to be in. That will be a very uncomfortable situation. But that being said, I do think Keyshawn Davis is just a very good talent. He seems to be refocused to the sport of boxing. Obviously, he had a no contest called on his last fight for failing a test for marijuana. But I think he's over those. He's over that sort of situation now, and he's looking to come back, make a statement. And I think that he will make maybe not a statement in the sense of a KO victory, but I do think he's going to have a very dominant performance. So yeah, my prediction is Keyshawn Davis to win by unanimous decision. I can't see him taking out Pedraza, but if he does, that is also another very credible notch on his belt. Moving on to the main event, you got Teofimo Lopez versus Jermaine Ortiz. This fight is extremely intriguing. Jermaine Ortiz is a very, very good operator. Obviously, we've seen that he was able to beat Jamel Herring, who's a former world champion. So you kind of say, okay, well, you're at least minimum on those fringes of the world level stage. He also gave Vasily Lomachenko one of his toughest victories. Obviously, he's had losses, disputed and tough losses as well, but this is definitely was one of his toughest victories. Jermaine Ortiz won a lot of the first rounds in that fight by being able to control range and distance. Now, he's got the height and the reach advantage over Teofimo Lopez, but the reach advantage is actually, I think, only half an inch, so it's not as pronounced as it was obviously against Vasily Lomachenko. But the best bet for him to be able to win this fight is to control that space, control that distance, stay economic, and stop Teofimo Lopez from being able to have opportunities to counter. Because Teofimo Lopez is an exceptional counter puncher, especially with his athleticism and his combination punching and his punch picking. The issue with Teofimo is he should comfortably win this. He's got the talent to comfortably win this, but he seems to be focused on any and everything else apart from this fight as of late. Everything is about Terence Crawford. It's about Devin Haney. It's about, you know, sort of Ryan Garcia. It's about slagging off Eddie Hearn and DAZN. It's literally, his mind is everything and everywhere apart from this fighter, who is one of the better fighters that he would have fought in recent days, recent years. But you know, when he had that same level of confidence, you know, had the Sandor Martin fight, the Pedro Campo fight, I felt that, well, the Sandor Martin especially was very lackluster. You know, a fight that I actually think there should have really been calls for him to lose. There was a knockdown that wasn't called. There was a knockdown that was called. He still got the decision. You know, maybe some A fighter bias, A side bias, but this one, he just does not seem focused on his opponent, and I think that's very dangerous. That's a very dangerous way for him to be, and because of that, I think that the first half of this fight specifically is going to be extremely difficult, where it might take him quite a while to warm into the situation and the fight as it plays out. But just because I think that overall his quality will shine through, and I know that he's not going to I don't think he's gonna let those potential big paydays, you know, fall by the wayside by taking his eye off the ball again, as he done with Kambosos. Not only that, I don't think that Jermaine Ortiz is going to try to control the real estate from the outside. I do think he's going to come in to the pocket. He's going to try and take advantage of Teofimo and impose a little bit of additional size. And I think that's going to give Teofimo the opportunities he needs to open Ortiz up, especially in the middle to late rounds. Now, a late stoppage isn't out of the cards, but my personal opinion is that Teofimo Lopez will win this fight via a majority decision, possibly a split. I mean, it could be a UD, but I think it's going to be a majority. I think he's going to lose a lot of early rounds just due to not being focused and having to really switch on and sort of change up the game plan towards the back end. Now, if Ortiz can actually, if he can affect those first rounds and actually stay disciplined, and then stay disciplined from the next rounds when Teo has to now start chasing and coming forward, there's definitely a chance he could win this fight, and I wouldn't back against him being able to pull off the upset. But I just think due to the overall quality and the ability to maybe adapt on the fly on this one, and I'm assuming he's in tip-top health as opposed to on previous occasions, my prediction is that Teofimo Lopez will win this fight via, like I said, majority, split, maybe even a UD, but I think it's going to be a majority decision. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know your opinions down below. Leave your comments down there. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. But as always, for another week, that's Basis Picks locked.